This summer, I got to study animation in Korea for 1 month, and it was the month of my life. Good people, good food, good teachers. I made friends for life, some of my best animation yet, and for free? What? So how did I get this opportunity? At this point, I was a junior in college, which is when the pressure of getting an internship was really on. I was applying to internship after internship and getting rejection after rejection, all while working on my third year film. At the same time, I find out a lot about internship opportunities through the online groups I'm in. If anyone's familiar with groups like Rise Up Animation and Asians in Animation and Women in Animation, all these groups in animation. I think it was the newsletter for Rise Up Animation that I heard about this opportunity in particular, and it was reposted again in Asians in Animation, and I was already in application mode with all these internships, and the deadline was coming up that weekend, so I thought, I have all of my application materials, I just kind of have to organize them together and submit. At this point too, I already was concluding that I wouldn't score that summer internship. My summer was to be free and empty. Never in a million years would I thought to have gotten it, and not more than a full scholarship. What? This was the first year the program was held, so when I got the news, I couldn't find any information about it. When the other scholarship recipients and I finally met up, we all agreed that we initially thought this was a scam. I mean, the thought of that in retrospect is really funny. We were just like, yeah, we'll just fly all the way to Korea and just see if this works out. I am really glad they did not go psych on us last minute. So I got a full scholarship. So this covered a round-trip flight from America to Korea, my room and boarding, the tuition it would cost for the class, a $500 stipend for food, a 4-day pass to Creative Talent Network Expo, and also a hotel for the Creative Talent Network Expo weekend. So yeah, that was a lot. Program structure. They flew me in. It was the longest flight I had ever taken. I barely survived it. And Mike welcomed us at the airport. He was to be the instructor for our program there, and he had this big history of animating on childhood classics for me, like Beauty and the Beast, The Road to El Dorado, Space Jam, Osmosis Jones, The Iron Giant. Like, what? That was crazy. And only when we landed were we told any details of what we were going to do over the next month. Like, I came in completely clueless. That's also when we found out the workshop wouldn't even be taking place in Seoul. We were going to be on the college campus of Chunggang College, which is closer to Incheon. The 6 of us would be joining a class of 20 or so local students to create character animations, human or animal, that we would design to be exploring a marketplace. So this is what our schedule looked like. But the only ones we were required to attend were these 2 per week. The 6 of us were so enthusiastic about being here that we attended as many as we could anyways. This included auditing, figure drawing, and visual language classes. We eased into presentations by covering animation principles like squash and stretch and acting. Mike's teaching style was showing us clips of animation and film to sharpen our eyes to what's done really well and what could be done better next time. 3 weeks in, the 6 of us had to give presentations on our own work, which we followed with a goofy Kahoot for fun. I also gave a workshop on a quick introduction to After Effects and how I used it to composite my third-year film, which I finished on the flight. Whoops. And on the last week, Mike presented his current cut of his film, My Little World, which was so incredibly lovely. The campus itself was super cool. There was a cafeteria, a school restaurant, because the school has a culinary major. What? Pool and ping pong tables, darts, a rec room, a maker's lab where you can make charms and prints. They were so kind to give us 50,000 won worth of credits, which I spent making postcards of my own work and also farewell cards for everyone in the program because everyone was so generous. The Maker's Lab was also capable enough to make acrylics charms, stickers, acrylic stands, t-shirts, mugs, and 3D prints. The vending machines around campus also came in total clutch. One thing that surprised me for sure was that there were eggs in the vending machine. The local area. We were in a small college town. It was astounding for someone who's grown up in cities all my life. When we go to Seoul, it was a little bit more identifiable, but in the countryside, we were surrounded by mountains, trees, forests. We'd wake up to birds chirping and fall asleep to frogs croaking, and I have never heard frogs before that. And our window view was of the mountains. That's another thing, the campus was on a mountain. So there'd be a 15-minute walk between the town and campus down a slope, which wasn't so bad until you're tired and it's late at night and you've eaten like 50 rolls of kimbap and you have to hike all the way up. Being in a small town also meant that there were a lot of cute local businesses and restaurants that we could sit around and eat in. One of our favorite places to frequent was this place that had a very large personal manga collection, and we enjoyed sitting and drawing our peers and friends while sipping on dalgona lattes. The college was also down the street from what is in the winter a ski resort, so a lot of the businesses around us were rentals for snowboards and skiing places that were closed down, obviously, because we were there in the middle of June. City trips. We also got to go around on a weekly trip to Seoul with the class. We visit places like Namdaemun Market, the Isao Takahata exhibit, and the National Museum of Korea. Speaking of, one of my favorite videos of this trip was one that I caught of this harmonica player doing the most amazing solo in front of this museum. Technically, even though we weren't in Seoul, the big city was only 1 to 2 hours away by combinations of buses and trains, so if we wanted to, we could travel there whenever we wanted, which we did on our own sometimes to visit places like the Hello Kitty exhibit, or to go out and rent hanboks to visit Gyeongbokgung Palace, or even visit friends who happened to be in town. The food. So I basically lived off of convenience stores during my time there. The school lunches were also amazing. My school doesn't have a dining plan, so it was my first time having a school food hall lunch. The conversion rate made it $4 for lunch and maybe about $2 for breakfast, if I remember correctly. And they were always so healthy and filled with vegetables, and my nails got stronger in 2 weeks after eating school lunches for that long. Speaking of, this was my discovery of how unhealthy American food is, or rather a reinforcement of how unlucky I had it to not have access to healthy foods. So I'm sitting at a table eating bingsu with my new friends from Korea, India, and Australia, and I had to explain to them what eating pizza rolls, pizza pockets, bagel bites, Lunchables, and Pop-Tarts was like growing up, and how expensive it is to get vegetables in the city. American food, you have failed us. No healthy diet for us. Amazing food montage. If you don't do well at spicy food, you'll have a hard time, but it is possible. 4 out of the 6 of us didn't do well with spice. I was pretty okay, and we all managed. One of us was a vegetarian who was still able to be accommodated too. It definitely helped that we had locals with us to talk to all the cooks. One of the places we frequented was called Malatong. My best explanation for this is that it's like when you go to a yogurt place and fill it up with yogurt and then it's priced on the weight. So this was like that, but you'd fill it up with stuff you'd want in your soup, and they'd fill the rest of it with soup, and you'd just be billed for how many, fish cakes and noodles you'd put in. It was amazing, and also I could not go higher than like a 0.5, I am sorry. The students. So when we came into the program, a lot of us were really worried about the language barrier, but despite that, we did a lot of activities together. We did karaoke, we watched movies with both English and Korean subtitles, we danced. I am so unbelievably grateful to have them to teach us about food and culture and also language. They were so patient to teach us things like grammar and why words meant the things that they did. If anyone asks me if I learned any phrases during my time there, I have the basic grammar words of Duolingo, like gami and gomi, and my only phrase I have from Korea, which is 한국어 잘 몰라요. I am so sorry if none of those were pronounced correctly. During the pandemic, I took a day to learn the Korean alphabet, Hangul, which was enough to allow me to read during the trip. Luckily, a lot of Korean words are also English words, just written out in Hangul, so I continued to read every sign I could with the gamble that it would be a word I understood. And if all fails, the magic of Papago. Here are some of my favorite Papago translations. My growth in animation. Mike taught us classic Disney techniques that definitely differed to what I was used to in a school that specializes in TV production. It definitely fulfilled my knowledge of what I felt was missing in my work, wanting to work in feature 2D animation. He emphasized acting everything out first, then thumbnailing, then letting your roughs be rough as possible so it can emphasize on movement, and spending tie down actually making things solid shapes and cleaner. In mindset. Mike had an emphasis the whole time about following art for passion and how it's so easy to lose when there's money on the line. However, he taught that we're only on Earth for so long, so while there is privilege for artists who are able to turn down projects they don't want to work on, there's still value to be had in being able to work on projects that fulfill the artistic spirit. Otherwise, a job is just a job, and it's your personal art that should fulfill you the most. He also managed to pick out 6 animation hustlers, and that, at least for me, had an astounding effect of teaching us not to sell our souls away to work, that your happiness and experience of life comes first, and that it all feeds back into our animation after all. If anyone knows me, I am definitely a sort of someone who would break my back over work, so I feel like that's the biggest change that came out of this program. By the end, I wanted to relax and not work. What? That's so different. So, how you can do this too. I'm so grateful to be the first group to do this program, and with how well it went this year, they may be planning to hold it again next time soon. I would keep in touch with Creative Talent Network's socials or website or when they may announce this. Our deadline was around one of the weekends in April. I would also recommend joining online groups to connect with animators and find opportunities like this. Here are a bunch I know about below. So that was my experience studying abroad in South Korea for a month. I kind of did the general arcs because I didn't know how long people would be interested in hearing me yap, but I also know that a lot of people I know would be asking me how my trip went, so I thought it would be easier to just cover it all in a video like this. I have so much more footage. If you guys are interested in anything else about the trip or have any questions about it, feel free to shoot down a comment below. It was such a pleasure to be able to look back at all this footage again. See you!
Wow! Look at him! Wow! Amazing! Wow! Oh.